Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone. I don't know about you, but one thing that's been bugging me more and more of late, particularly about the type of content that we're seeing churned out of the big budget Hollywood studio system, is the portrayal of women. It's a problem that I like to call the masculinization of the feminine. This idea that if you take a female character and you just make her effectively into a male, you give her all the characteristics of a male, that somehow this is female empowerment, this is a celebration of the feminine, when in actual fact, it's nothing of the sort. It happens in lots of movies. Just some recent examples, the portrayal of females in the Star Trek films, Atomic Blonde, even there's some stuff in Thor Ragnarok. And these are just some examples of many that you could cite where this is becoming more and more of an issue. And what you have is, instead of actually celebrating the genuine difference between males and females and celebrating female diversity, instead what you do is you pretend it doesn't exist, and you basically take female characters and you write male parts for them to play. And they effectively are playing roles that are male in nature, and then you hold these up as if somehow this is a good and virtuous form of female empowerment, female equality, and a celebration of what is feminine. It's absolute nonsense. It's nothing of the sort. It's not celebrating femininity. It's actually sidelining femininity. What you are doing here is you are treating the feminine difference as if it doesn't actually exist. But that's not what I think authentic feminism is actually supposed to be about. There is, I think, authentic feminism, and then I think there is the toxic kind of feminism. The authentic feminism recognizes and is built on the truth that there are differences between males and females, that males and females don't have to be the same, and that instead of trying to make males and females just look like each other, we should celebrate and respect the otherness of each other, in this case, the feminine otherness. These movies don't do that, though. Imagine if this is how we were trying to pass off racial diversity. I think you'd pretty quickly see what the problem is. So we took a whole lot of non-European actors and actresses and we said, hey, look, we've got all these great roles that we want you to play in our films, and we really want to showcase racial and ethnic diversity. So we've got all these great roles for you, and you are going to play characters that look and speak and act like Europeans. And you know what? Some of them will even engage in a CGI process of pigmenting your skin so that you look white. And isn't that awesome? Look at this. We've got racial diversity in our movies. We'd rightly say that's not racial diversity. You're not respecting the difference there. You're actually trying to pretend it doesn't exist. You're actually erasing the difference. That's not what equality, that's not what respect and female empowerment actually looks like. And the crazy thing is here that this is actually starting to get really absurd. It doesn't need to be happening either. That's the other crazy thing, because there's plenty of examples of strong females just in human history that could be portrayed on the silver screen, which show a lot of profoundly wondrous gifts that are unique to the feminine genius. And it's becoming really absurd, this whole Hollywood obsession with taking females and trying to turn them into males as if somehow that's A, true, and B, that's what female empowerment actually looks like. A classic example of this was the recent movie Atomic Blonde. You have this female super agent who is able to easily dispatch males who quite clearly are superior in size and their physical capabilities and who are combat-ready males. And it's just absurd. We all know that it's a nonsense. In Thor Ragnarok, we were presented with this whole idea that the Asgardian people, their special forces, as they called them, their top tier of elite warriors, were all females. This is from a people that has and is renowned for having a warrior class, right? And now we're being told that their top tier of soldiers was females. I mean, the males and the females, there doesn't appear to be any supernatural advantage or disadvantage going on here. Instead, we're just being told that we're expected to believe that in actual fact, the members of their society who do not have a greater physical strength, who do not have a greater physical stamina and fighting prowess as a general rule, are actually the elite special forces. It's clearly an ideological imposition, and it's not really a celebration of what it is that is so beautiful and wondrous and worth respecting and celebrating about the feminine. As I said, it's actually sidelining the true beauty of the feminine genius. I think of a movie that actually showed the difference here and didn't try to play this game, and it's really only very briefly at the beginning of the film where we see this, and that's Man of Steel. You have a male and a female character, Superman's mother and Superman's father. And clearly, they have not tried to make those two characters into the same type of thing. There are clear differences, and they are differences that we probably didn't even really notice because they're just true, and we know they're true because the world exists that way, and we all live in that world without even having to think about it. We know that it's not a social construct, that males and females are different in the way they see the world and their physical abilities, the way they exist in the world. There are differences there. And we understand that, we know that's true. And so we probably didn't even really notice in the opening of Man of Steel because what was being presented to us was just reality. You have Superman's father who clearly has some physical prowess and abilities that Superman's mother doesn't have. What they don't do is they don't try and present Superman's mother as if she's also a warrior who can match it with the men. Instead, they give her different attributes. The gift of motherhood is very much pronounced here in this opening sequence. And there's that moment where she outwits the enemies by just, she has that quick-wittedness to know what to do to nurture her son. Superman's father plays a different game. He's a task-focused man, which is what most males are, and he has a warrior, a physical strength, an ability to fight and defend his family that way. They both care for their family, they care for each other, they care for their child, but they do it in different ways. There's this masculine-feminine complementarity and difference that's on display. It's a recognition, without even really saying too much at all, that this is how reality actually is. Men and women are not the same. Males and females have different strengths and different weaknesses, and the way that we operate in the world is different. And that instead of trying to pretend that those differences don't exist or downplay them and sideline, we should actually be celebrating these things. And so what that means is that a feminine portrayal that's authentic and a strong female character is not one where you've just turned that female character effectively into a male. And even the way in which males and females operate in the world, if you think about an organization, the way a male will run an organization as a general rule, there obviously are outliers, but the general norm is that the way that a male will run an organization is very different to the way that a female will run an organization. A male will run an organization in a way that tends to be, as a general rule, to be more task-orientated. They focus on tasks and achieving things and showing strength and competitiveness and everything else. Now, females will still do those things, but they will do them in a different way. They will have an intuition and an intelligence for the personal factor. For them, it's not just about achieving the task, it's about how are my staff getting on in this process? What's going on for them? Now, obviously, that's a general rule. There are some males and females that are outliers and that break those norms. But this is not social conditioning. This is just the way we are. And one of the big differences here that lies at the heart of the feminine genius is the gift of motherhood. Now, I get it. I can hear people out there screaming, oh, but what about those women who just don't feel like mothers or feel like they're called to be mothers? Let me let you in on a little secret. Speaking now as the father of 5 children who's married to the mother of those 5 children, that my wife, who is a very competent and capable mother, she still very often finds herself telling me that she feels she's not a good enough mother, she's not up to the task. I don't think there are too many females that actually feel that they're really good at this motherhood thing. A lot of females actually struggle with accepting the fact that they can do motherhood and they can do it well. You know, even those who are doing it really well, often it's I think, again, this is just part of this natural thing that occurs within femininity, in the way in which perhaps they don't see in themselves, and they need us as men to step up and remind them, hey, you are just profoundly good at this thing. One of the things I'm very aware of is constantly reminding my wife of just how good a mother she is, so that she doesn't get down on herself and second guess herself all the time. But even those women who perhaps might not be married or not have biological children of their own, the way in which they outwork their life in the world as a general rule is still very much through that lens of motherhood, even if it's not biological motherhood. They nurture and care for their staff in a way that, male leaders don't tend to do. We tend to have a sort of very task-focused and task-oriented approach to leading and managing things. We're just different. right? And even those women who perhaps who really don't feel called to motherhood at all, it's quite possibly for them, part of it is if you haven't had a good example of motherhood, you've never really seen it up close before, it can seem like something daunting. And for most people, it's not even until you actually become a mother, or in my case, a father, that you really realize what fatherhood is. And parenting is one of those things that you grow into. You're not sure how good you're going to be at this. You're not sure if you're even really ready for it or capable of doing it. But once you hold your first child in your arms for that very first time, all of a sudden, everything changes. And it becomes a reality that's a lot more present to you, and everything really does change, and you grow into it. I am now more grateful for fatherhood, and I'm a better father, and I'm more engaged as a father, and more aware, and I understand how to do fatherhood a lot better now, 10 years on from the birth of my first child, than what I was when I started on this journey. But none of that changes the fact that there's a difference between males and females, and the way in which, as a general rule, females will outwork themselves in the world is through the gift of that feminine genius, through that motherhood heart, that nurturing motherly heart, even if it's not biological motherhood. And what I think Hollywood is doing here is a great disservice, because it's not actually celebrating that diversity at all. Instead, it's pretending like it doesn't exist, and it's now more and more starting to embrace these absurd realities that there are no differences between males and females. And I don't think that's good for any of us, because the last thing the world needs is a model of the feminine where females look exactly and act exactly like brutal males. What you need to curb that barbarian excess in men, we have a strength that I think is supposed to be put at the service of protecting and nurturing those around us. And what we need to do, though, is one of our weaknesses is related to that strength. That strength can fall into excess. We can become like barbarians and very brutal if we don't have an authentic feminine genius to actually curb that brutal excess and tendency that can go along with our strength. So the last thing we need is a whole lot of brutal people in the world. We don't need a model of the feminine that looks like brutal masculinity. What we actually need is an authentic, nurturing femininity to be held up and celebrated as a reminder to men that and as a call to us, that we need to actually curb that excess within ourselves, within the masculine. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. You might think I'm totally off my rocker and that I've wandered into some weird and controversial territory. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Left Foot Media.